Lena wiped the counter one last time, her hands slightly trembling from exhaustion. The cafe was quiet, almost empty, except for the soft hum of the espresso machine and the occasional clatter of dishes in the kitchen. She glanced at the clock on the wall. Only a few hours left before her shift would end, and she could finally go home, though home was just a small shared apartment she rented with a roommate. It wasn't much, but it was hers. She moved to the side, readying herself for the next customer. Lena had worked at the cafe for almost 2 years now. Some days were easy, the regulars were polite, and the tips helped. Other days it felt like she was invisible, like the people coming in didn't notice her at all. She had grown used to the loneliness that often came with her job. It wasn't a glamorous life, but it kept her going. Every tip, every dollar brought her closer to her dream, helping her younger brother move from Russia to the United States. She thought about him often, his letters, his calls, the way he tried to stay strong even when he felt lost. The door chimed and Lena looked up. A well-dressed man stepped in, carrying a leather briefcase. He had the sort of presence that made people notice him without even trying. Lena recognized him immediately. He was a regular at the cafe. Most days he came in, ordered a coffee, sometimes a pastry, and stayed at the corner table, often working on his laptop. Today he looked more serious than usual, his brows furrowed, eyes scanning the cafe like he was searching for something beyond the menu. "Good afternoon, sir," Lena said politely, moving toward him with a small smile. "Afternoon," he replied, his voice calm but precise. He gave her a nod that felt like an acknowledgement of her presence beyond the usual, "Here's your coffee" routine. Lena poured his coffee, making sure the foam was just right. She placed it in front of him with a quiet, "Here you go." He didn't look up immediately. He seemed distracted, almost absorbed in his thoughts. Just as Lena turned back to wipe the counter, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She frowned slightly. She didn't usually answer calls during work unless it was important. Glancing at the screen, her heart skipped a beat. It was her brother. "Excuse me for a moment," she whispered, stepping aside into the small hallway behind the counter. Her hands shook slightly as she answered the phone. "Privet," she said softly. Her brother's voice came through, anxious and hurried. "Lena, I don't know what to do. School, they're giving me trouble again. I don't understand the forms. I tried asking, but..." His voice trailed off into frustration. "Calm down," Lena said gently. "Take a deep breath. Tell me exactly what is wrong and we'll figure it out. Don't panic." She listened intently, guiding him through the steps he needed to take. She spoke quickly but clearly in Russian, her voice steady even though her heart ached knowing he was struggling so far away. She could feel the tension in his words, the fear of not being able to succeed in a system that felt overwhelming. The man at the table, Ethan, had been watching her from the corner of his eye. At first he thought she was talking to a coworker about an order, but then he noticed the language she was using. Russian. He didn't know much about the language, but he could tell she was speaking fluently. Her voice carried authority and calm at the same time, a combination that made him pause. She wasn't just fluent. She was confident, patient, and commanding attention without raising her voice. Lena ended the call with a soft, "Everything will be okay. I'll help you through this. I promise." She put her phone back in her pocket, her hand still slightly trembling from worry and the effort of keeping her voice composed. Ethan finally spoke, his curiosity breaking through his reserved demeanor. "Excuse me," he said, his voice polite but firm. "Did I hear you speaking Russian?" Lena froze for a second, then turned toward him with a small, apologetic smile. "Yes, sorry about that." "That was my brother. He's having some trouble and I needed to help him." He studied her for a moment, his eyes sharp but not unkind. "You speak Russian very well. Are you from Russia?" "Yes," Lena admitted softly. She didn't usually share much about herself with strangers, but something about the way he asked made it feel safe. "That's impressive," he said, leaning back slightly. "I've met very few people who speak it so naturally. You seem very composed even when helping someone in a stressful situation." Lena shrugged, brushing imaginary crumbs from her apron. "I guess it comes from practice. My brother counts on me a lot. I have to stay calm for him." Ethan nodded, his curiosity deepening. "Do you ever work as a translator?" Lena blinked, slightly surprised by the question. "Oh no, I mean I can help people sometimes, but I've never done it professionally. I can barely afford to take time off work, let alone get a real job in translation." He smiled faintly, almost to himself, as if he was thinking something through. "Interesting," he murmured. He paused, then picked up his cup of coffee and sipped it slowly. "You have a presence, a calmness that's rare. It's remarkable to see someone handle a situation like that with such composure." Lena felt her cheeks heat up slightly. She wasn't used to compliments from strangers, especially strangers like him, who carried an air of confidence and authority. She tried to laugh it off, muttering, "Thank you, I do what I can." Ethan set his cup down and handed her a crisp bill. "Keep the change," he said, "and maybe think about what I asked. You never know when an opportunity might come knocking." Before Lena could respond, he picked up his briefcase and left the cafe, leaving her standing behind the counter, feeling a strange mix of curiosity and disbelief. She shook her head and laughed softly to herself. It was probably nothing, just another well-dressed man trying to make small talk. Still, something about the moment lingered in her mind, like a quiet spark waiting to ignite. When her next customer arrived, Lena moved quickly, hiding her thoughts behind her usual professional demeanor. Yet all day, she found herself thinking about the man who had noticed her, who had seemed genuinely interested in more than just her service at the cafe. She wondered if someone like him even remembered her now, or if it was just a fleeting moment, quickly forgotten as he returned to his busy life. After her shift ended, Lena trudged home through the rain-slicked streets. The city lights reflected in the puddles, creating a scattered pattern of gold and white that made the world feel both lonely and magical at the same time. She unlocked the door to her apartment where her roommate was already asleep, exhausted from her own long day. Lena quietly slipped in, placing her bag down and sitting by the small window that overlooked the street below. She pulled out her phone and checked her messages from her brother. His last message was short but anxious. "I hope I can figure this out. I don't want to fail again," Lena typed back carefully. "You're not failing. We'll get through this together. I promise." She stared out the window thinking about the day's events. A simple phone call, a brief interaction with a stranger had stirred something in her that she hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. Maybe there was more waiting for her than long hours at the cafe, than struggling to make ends meet. Maybe, just maybe, her life could change. Lena leaned back, letting out a slow breath. She didn't know how or when, but something told her that the world outside her small apartment was bigger than she had imagined, and that perhaps her calm, quiet life was about to take an unexpected turn. The next morning, Lena woke up to the faint light of dawn creeping through the thin curtains of her small apartment. Her body ached from the previous day's long shift, but sleep hadn't brought the comfort she usually hoped for. Instead, her thoughts kept circling back to the man from the cafe, the well-dressed financier who had noticed her speaking Russian. She couldn't shake the memory of his eyes, sharp and curious, or the way he had paused before leaving, as if he had seen something in her that others never did. She moved through her morning routine quietly, careful not to wake her roommate. Breakfast was a simple piece of toast and some tea, but she barely tasted it. Her mind was elsewhere, racing with questions and what-ifs. Could it have meant anything? The way he asked if she worked as a translator? Or was it just a passing remark quickly forgotten? She tried to convince herself it was nothing, but a tiny spark of hope had ignited in her chest, and she could not ignore it. By the time she arrived at the cafe, the streets were busy with the usual morning rush. People hurried past, their faces tense, their steps quick, lost in their own worlds. Lena slipped into her apron, greeting the few early customers with her usual polite smile. She moved from table to table, pouring coffee, refilling water, and taking orders, but her mind was only partially on the work. She found herself glancing at the door every time it opened, half expecting to see him walk in again. Around mid-morning, the bell above the cafe door rang, and Lena looked up. Her heart skipped a beat. There he was, standing just inside, briefcase in hand, scanning the room until his eyes landed on her. He smiled faintly, a small knowing smile, and nodded. Lena felt her stomach twist with a mix of nerves and anticipation. He made his way toward her, his steps confident but not rushed. When he reached the counter, he spoke in a calm, polite tone. "Good morning. I hope I'm not disturbing your work, but I wanted to speak with you for a moment." Lena nodded, trying to steady her voice. "Of course. How can I help you?" He leaned slightly against the counter, folding his hands. I know this might sound unusual, but I have a business meeting coming up. It involves Russian clients and my interpreter just canceled. I remembered seeing you speak Russian yesterday, and I wondered if you might be willing to help me just for a day. Lena blinked. She had barely slept, and the idea of being pulled into some high-stakes business meeting made her feel both terrified and curious. I don't know, she said slowly. I've never done anything like that before. I mean, I can speak Russian, but translating for a business meeting, it sounds complicated. He smiled, his eyes gentle but insistent. I understand. It's a big request, but I think you could handle it. I just need someone to translate during the meeting, nothing more. I can pay you well for your time, more than you would earn here in 2 weeks. Think of it as a one-day opportunity. Lena's mind raced. She looked around at the cafe, at the customers sipping their coffees and tapping on their laptops, and then back at him. The offer was tempting, more than tempting, it was life-changing. And yet fear held her back. What if she messed up? What if she embarrassed herself in front of these important people? I'll need to think about it, she said honestly. That's fine, he replied, nodding. Take the rest of the day to decide. Here's my card. If you agree, a car will pick you up tomorrow morning. It will take you straight to the airport. The meeting is abroad and I'll cover all expenses. No pressure, but I hope you'll consider it. You have a rare skill and I believe it could make a big difference. Lena took the card, her fingers brushing his for a moment. It felt surreal, almost unreal, holding something that could change her life. She watched him leave, the doorbell's chime echoing in her mind long after he had gone. For the rest of her shift, Lena felt distracted. She went through the motions of serving coffee, taking orders, and cleaning tables, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She imagined herself stepping onto a plane, traveling to another country, translating for important people, and maybe, just maybe, finally being able to help her brother in ways she never could from behind the cafe counter. When her shift ended, she didn't go straight home. Instead, she walked slowly through the city streets, thinking and imagining. The rain had stopped, leaving the pavements wet and reflective, the streetlights shimmering on the surface like scattered stars. She stopped at a small park, sitting on a bench to think. Her heart pounded with a mixture of excitement and fear. She knew the decision she made tonight could change everything. She pulled out her phone and called her brother. He answered after a few rings, his voice brightening when he heard her voice. Lena! How was work? He asked. She took a deep breath. I got asked something unusual today. A man saw me speaking Russian and wants me to help him with a business meeting abroad. It's a lot, and it could mean a big opportunity. There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice trembling slightly. Lena, that sounds amazing. You have to do it. This could be the chance we've been waiting for. She smiled softly, feeling the warmth of his encouragement. I know, but it's scary. I've never done anything like this before. What if I fail? You won't, he said firmly. You're smart, you're capable. You've always handled everything for me. You can do this too. I believe in you. Her eyes misted over as she listened to him. Even from thousands of miles away, his belief in her gave her courage. She thanked him softly, ending the call with a renewed sense of purpose. Back at her apartment, she packed a small bag for the journey. She didn't need much, just a few changes of clothes, some toiletries, and her documents. Every item she packed felt heavy with the weight of possibility. She double-checked everything, making sure she hadn't forgotten anything, and then sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the bag. Lena knew that accepting this opportunity meant stepping into an entirely new world. It meant leaving behind the familiarity of her cafe, her apartment, and her routine. It meant risking embarrassment, fear, and failure. But it also meant adventure, growth, and the chance to finally make a difference in her brother's life. By the time she fell asleep that night, the decision had been made in her heart. She would go. She would step into the unknown, face whatever challenges came her way, and do her best. No matter what happened, she knew this was a chance she could not ignore. The next morning, a black car waited outside her apartment, sleek and quiet. Lena's heart raced as she stepped outside, suitcase in hand. The driver smiled politely, opening the door for her, and she climbed in, feeling the weight of reality settle on her shoulders. As the car drove through the bustling city streets toward the airport, Lena watched the city blur past the window. She thought about the man from the cafe, about the phone call that had changed everything, and about the life that awaited her. Her nerves were still there, but they were mixed with excitement. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was stepping toward something bigger than herself, something that could truly transform her life. At the airport, Ethan was waiting. He greeted her with a calm smile as if this was the most natural thing in the world. "Good morning, Lena," he said. "Are you ready?" She nodded, her hands gripping the handle of her suitcase tightly. "Yes," she said, her voice firm though her heart was racing. "Good," he replied. "This will be a short flight, and once we arrive, you'll see exactly what I meant about helping with the meeting. Just follow my lead and don't worry. You're going to do great." The moment they stepped onto the private jet, Lena felt a mix of awe and disbelief. She had never been on a plane like this before, let alone a private one. The interior was sleek, quiet, and impossibly comfortable. She took a seat by the window, staring out as the ground fell away beneath them, the city shrinking into a patchwork of lights and shadows. As the plane ascended, Ethan handed her a folder with documents. "Here's some background information about the investors," he said. "You'll need to help me translate during the meeting. Don't worry about everything else. Just focus on what's in the folder for now." Lena opened it carefully, scanning the pages filled with names, figures, and notes. Her heart raced, but her mind quickly focused. She read through each section, making mental notes of pronunciation, key points, and cultural considerations. This was more than just a language task. It was a bridge between two worlds, and she felt the weight of responsibility but also the thrill of it. Ethan watched her quietly, noticing the way her eyes lit up with concentration, the way she nodded occasionally to herself as she read. He could see that she was more than capable, that she had an instinctive understanding of language and communication that went far beyond simple fluency. By the time the plane began its descent, Lena felt a mixture of nerves and excitement. She was about to meet the investors, translate for the first time in a high-stakes setting, and prove to herself that she could step beyond the life she had always known. She took a deep breath, straightened her back, and looked at Ethan. "I'm ready," she said. Her voice steady, he nodded, smiling. "I know you are." The city below shimmered as the plane landed. Lena felt a sense of anticipation and determination settle in her chest. This was it. Her life was about to change, and there was no turning back. The private jet touched down smoothly, and Lena felt a flutter of nerves in her stomach. She had never left the country before, let alone traveled for work. The city they landed in was foreign, its streets bustling with people speaking languages she could barely recognize, but the excitement of the unknown kept her heart racing with anticipation. She gripped the handle of her suitcase tightly as the door opened, letting in a rush of cool air that smelled faintly of the sea mixed with city traffic. Ethan stepped out first, calm and assured, guiding her through the airport with quiet confidence. Lena followed closely, trying to match his pace while taking in every detail around her. The airport was large and efficient, filled with people who seemed to move purposefully, speaking quickly in their own languages. She felt small and slightly overwhelmed, but there was a part of her that thrilled at being here, at being trusted to do something so important. Outside the airport, a sleek black car waited. The driver nodded politely as Ethan opened the door for Lena. She slid inside, her eyes widening at the leather interior and the quiet hum of the engine. The city blurred past the windows as they drove, buildings tall and crowded with advertisements flashing in unfamiliar scripts. Lena tried to memorize everything, knowing she would carry this moment in her memory forever. Ethan handed her a folder as they drove, the weight of it solid in her hands. "Here's everything you'll need for the meeting," he said. "The investors are very particular. They appreciate accuracy, but they also respond well to clarity and cultural sensitivity. Focus on the language and let me handle the rest." Lena nodded, opening the folder carefully. The pages were filled with notes, financial figures, and profiles of the investors. She read quickly, translating in her mind, noting potential tricky phrases or cultural nuances that could be misunderstood. Her nerves didn't vanish, but they transformed into focus. This was her moment to prove herself, not just to Ethan, but to herself. The car pulled up to a modern office building. Glass walls reflected the sunlight, and a doorman greeted them with a polite bow. Ethan guided her through the lobby, and she could feel the weight of attention on them as they walked past employees who paused briefly to look at the newcomers. The elevator ride up was quiet, both of them focused. Ethan occasionally checking his watch, Lena quietly reviewing her notes. When the doors opened, They were met by a team of assistants who led them to a conference room. The room was large and impeccably decorated, with a long table surrounded by high-backed chairs. At the head of the table sat a group of investors, men and women in expensive suits, their expressions calm but alert. Lena felt her pulse quicken. These were the people who could change the trajectory of Ethan's deal, and she was responsible for translating every word accurately. Ethan gave her a reassuring smile. "Remember, just translate clearly. You know this language better than most anyone in this room. Stay calm, you're ready." She took a deep breath and nodded. As the meeting began, Ethan introduced her, briefly explaining her role. The investors acknowledged her with polite nods, and then the discussion started in Russian. At first, the words came fast and technical, filled with financial terms Lena had never encountered in casual conversation. But she stayed focused, carefully translating each point with precision. Her voice was steady, calm, and clear. She didn't just translate words. She conveyed meaning, adjusting phrases subtly to ensure that the tone remained respectful and professional. Whenever a difficult term came up, she paused briefly to consider the best translation, then delivered it smoothly. Ethan watched her, impressed by how naturally she handled the pressure. As the meeting progressed, Lena began to feel more confident. She noticed the investors responding positively to her translations, nodding or smiling at the clarity she provided. One of them, a tall man with silver hair, asked a particularly detailed question about a financial projection. Lena translated his question and then translated Ethan's carefully considered response. The investors leaned in, seemingly reassured by the clarity and precision she provided. During a short break, Ethan leaned over slightly. "You're doing wonderfully," he whispered. "I can't believe how calm you are. Most people would be panicking." Lena smiled a little shyly. I focus on what I know. The rest doesn't matter right now." Ethan nodded, clearly impressed. "That focus is rare. You're going to leave a strong impression today, not just with your language, but with your presence." The second half of the meeting was even more intense. The investors started negotiating specific terms, discussing potential risks, and proposing modifications to the deal. Lena's role became even more crucial as misunderstandings could derail the entire conversation. She translated carefully, occasionally clarifying idiomatic expressions or cultural references to avoid confusion. At one point, an investor made a pointed comment about the feasibility of a timeline. Ethan began to answer, but the investor interrupted with a question layered with subtle nuance. Lena translated the question, then Ethan's measured response, making sure the tone conveyed professionalism and reassurance. When the investor nodded in acknowledgement, Lena felt a small surge of pride. She was not just translating words, she was facilitating understanding, bridging two cultures, and ensuring that communication flowed seamlessly. As the meeting drew to a close, the investors seemed satisfied. There was a palpable shift in energy in the room, from cautious scrutiny to a sense of cautious optimism. Ethan turned to Lena, giving her a small nod of gratitude. "You were amazing. Truly amazing. I couldn't have done this without you." Lena felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had been terrified, unsure if she could handle the responsibility, but now she saw that she had not only kept up but had excelled. Her confidence grew as she realized she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. After the meeting, Ethan invited her to join him for a quick lunch with the investors. She hesitated, feeling out of place, but Ethan encouraged her. "You earned it," he said. "They deserve to meet the person who made all of this possible." The lunch was held at a quiet, elegant restaurant. Lena found herself seated between two of the investors, conversing carefully in Russian. She wasn't just translating anymore. She was contributing to the conversation, sharing insights about cultural differences and explaining nuances that helped the discussion flow more smoothly. The investors listened intently, clearly valuing her perspective. Ethan watched quietly, a faint smile on his lips. He had known she was talented, but seeing her in action confirmed it in a way that was undeniable. She was not just a translator, she was a bridge, a mediator, and a quiet force that ensured the success of the meeting. When the lunch concluded, Ethan and Lena walked back to the car. She felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything she had ever experienced. "That was incredible," she said softly, almost to herself. Ethan nodded. "It was, and you were the reason it went so smoothly." I hope you realize that. You handled pressure with grace, intelligence, and composure. You've changed the way they see this deal, and more importantly, they now see you. Lena's cheeks warmed. She had never received praise like this before. Not for her work, not for her skills, not for the things she had quietly done every day to keep herself and her brother afloat. Hearing it now in such a professional and high-stakes environment made her feel a mix of disbelief and pride. Back at the hotel, Lena had a quiet moment alone. She sat by the window looking out at the city lights, reflecting on the whirlwind of the day. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and the unknown, and had emerged not just unscathed but triumphant. She thought about her brother, about the life she had left behind, and about the opportunities that now seemed possible. That night, Ethan approached her in the hotel lounge. "I want to talk to you about something," he said, his voice calm. They sat together in a quiet corner, away from the soft murmur of other guests. "I was impressed today," he began. "Not just by your language skills, but by the way you carry yourself under pressure. Most people would have been nervous, but you were steady, confident, and intelligent. I think you have a rare gift, and I want to offer you more than just a one-time job." Lena felt her heart skip a beat. "What do you mean?" she asked cautiously. "I mean," he continued, "I want to hire you full-time as a translator and liaison for my international projects. You'd be traveling, attending meetings, and helping bridge gaps between cultures. It's a big step, and it would change your life. But I believe you're ready for it." Lena was stunned. She had dreamed of opportunities like this, but never imagined they could become real. Her mind raced with excitement, fear, and possibility. She thought about her brother, about the life she wanted to create, and about the chance to finally step beyond the limitations she had always faced. I need to think about it," she said softly, though a part of her already knew the answer. "Of course," Ethan said gently. "Take all the time you need. But know this, you've earned this opportunity with your own skill, intelligence, and courage. You've shown what you're capable of. I have no doubt you'll succeed." That night, Lena called her brother. She told him everything: the meeting, her role, the praise, and the offer. His voice trembled with pride and emotion. "Lena, this is incredible. You have to take it. This is the chance we've been waiting for. You've worked so hard for this. I believe in you." Lena smiled, tears welling up in her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she felt that everything she had worked for, the struggles, the long shifts, the worry about her brother, was leading her to something bigger, something meaningful. She finally understood that her courage, her skill, and her determination had opened doors she had only dreamed of. As she lay in bed that night, looking out over the city lights, Lena felt a sense of calm and anticipation. The world was vast, full of possibilities she had never imagined. She had taken the first step, and the path ahead was uncertain but full of promise. Tomorrow she would begin a new chapter, a journey that would challenge her, teach her, and ultimately change her life forever. The morning sun streamed through the hotel window, painting the room in warm golds and soft shadows. Lena sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her reflection in the mirror. She hardly recognized herself anymore. Just a few days ago, she had been a waitress at a small cafe, carefully balancing bills, worry, and the daily struggle to help her younger brother. Now she was here, in a foreign city, on a journey that could change her life completely. Her heart raced, but she felt a quiet strength she had never noticed before. Ethan knocked lightly on the door before entering. "Morning," he said, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "I thought you might need a little caffeine before the day starts." "Thanks," Lena said softly, accepting the cup. She took a sip and felt warmth spread through her, easing the nervous energy that had kept her awake most of the night. "Today," Ethan continued, "we have a dinner with the investors. It's less formal than the meeting, but it's still important. They want to get to know the people they're working with, and that includes you. They've already seen your skills in action, and now they want to see who you are beyond the translations." Lena nodded, feeling both excitement and apprehension. She had never been in a setting like this before. Social situations with strangers, especially important people, had always intimidated her. But she reminded herself that she had managed the meeting perfectly yesterday. If she could handle that, she could handle this too. The hotel car arrived and Lena stepped inside, her small suitcase rolling quietly behind her. The city seemed alive, bustling even in the evening. Lights flickered in shop windows, Cars honked faintly in the distance and pedestrians hurried along the sidewalks. She kept her eyes wide open, taking it all in. Every moment felt significant, as if she had stepped into a world she had only glimpsed through stories and imagination. The restaurant was tucked in a quiet street, understated yet elegant. As they entered, the host greeted them warmly, leading them to a private dining room. The investors were already seated, their expressions calm but attentive. Lena felt a flutter of nerves in her chest, but she reminded herself to breathe, to stay composed. The moment she stepped into the room, one of the investors, a woman with silver-streaked hair and sharp eyes, smiled warmly at her. "You must be the translator we've heard so much about," she said. "It's a pleasure to meet you." Lena smiled, her nerves softening. "It's an honor to meet you as well," she said, her voice steady. Ethan introduced her briefly, noting her role in the previous day's meeting and praising her calm professionalism. The investors nodded, their curiosity apparent but respectful. Lena took a seat next to Ethan, her folder of notes resting lightly on the table. As the dinner began, Lena found herself quietly observing the investors. They asked questions not just about business but about the people involved. She listened, translated, and sometimes offered subtle clarifications, ensuring that nuances were understood. She noticed that her translations were no longer just about words. They were about tone, intent, and connection. Every sentence she spoke helped bridge the gap between two different ways of thinking, two different cultures, and two different sets of expectations. One of the investors asked a question about a previous project Ethan had completed. Lena translated it, then paused slightly before translating his answer, adjusting the phrasing to convey confidence without arrogance. She noticed the investor nod appreciatively, clearly recognizing the care and thoughtfulness in both the question and the response. The conversation shifted naturally to lighter topics. The investors asked about Lena herself, her background, her family, her experiences learning and speaking Russian. She spoke honestly, sharing enough to make a connection but carefully maintaining professionalism. She mentioned her brother, the challenges they faced, and the reasons she had worked so hard at the cafe. Her words were simple, heartfelt, and genuine. Ethan watched quietly, clearly impressed by how she managed the conversation. She was not only translating but also contributing in a meaningful way. Her calm presence and authenticity had a subtle but undeniable impact on everyone at the table. At one point, an investor asked about cultural differences in business practices. Lena took a moment to consider her words before translating, then added a brief explanation of how certain gestures, tones, and phrases could be interpreted differently in Russian business culture. The investors listened intently, asking follow-up questions that Lena translated and sometimes clarified further. She could see the respect growing in their eyes, not just for Ethan but for her as well. Dinner continued with a relaxed atmosphere, but Lena remained alert. She knew that every word, every gesture, and every subtle cue mattered. She translated politely, offered insights when necessary, and maintained a calm, friendly demeanor. By the time dessert was served, she had begun to feel a sense of belonging in this strange, unfamiliar world. After the meal, Ethan leaned over slightly. "You did exceptionally well," he whispered. "Not just translating, but connecting. They trust you. They see your intelligence, your poise, and your ability to handle pressure. I'm proud of you." Lena felt a flush of pride. She had been terrified, imagining herself stumbling, making mistakes, and embarrassing herself. Instead, she had navigated the evening with confidence and grace. Her skills, her preparation, and her authenticity had made a lasting impression. Back at the hotel, Lena sat quietly in the lounge, reflecting on the evening. She thought about the investors' questions, the conversations she had translated, and the way she had handled herself. She realized that this experience had given her more than just a glimpse into a new world. It had shown her her own capabilities, her own strength, and the potential for a life far beyond the cafe she had once called her workplace. Ethan joined her, sitting across from her with a gentle smile. "I hope you understand what I mean when I say you're exceptional," he said. "You've proven yourself in ways that go beyond language. You have intuition, intelligence, and presence. Those qualities are rare. You've made a real difference tonight." Lena smiled, feeling both humbled and empowered. I didn't think I could do this," she admitted softly. "I was so nervous, so unsure. But once I started, it felt right. I felt like I was meant to be here. Ethan nodded. That's exactly it. You were meant to be here, and now you have the chance to see what else you can do. This could be the beginning of something extraordinary for you if you choose it. She thought of her brother again, of the life she wanted to give him, of the possibilities that lay ahead. She realized that her fear was natural, but it didn't have to hold her back. She had faced challenges before, and she had overcome them with determination, skill, and heart. This opportunity was bigger, yes, but it was not impossible. The next morning, Lena woke early, feeling a mix of excitement and resolve. She knew she had decisions to make, about accepting the role Ethan had offered, about traveling, about stepping fully into a world she had never imagined. But she also knew that she was ready to take the next step. She packed her bag carefully, double-checking her documents, her clothes, and her personal items. Every item she placed in the suitcase felt like a small declaration. She was preparing for a future that was hers to shape. When Ethan arrived to take her to the next meeting, she felt a calm determination settle over her. "I'm ready," she said, her voice steady. "I know you are," he replied, smiling. "You've already proven yourself in ways that go beyond words. Now it's time to show the rest of the world what you're capable of." As the car drove through the city streets, Lena gazed out the window, feeling a sense of possibility that she had never felt before. The world seemed vast, filled with opportunities, challenges, and experiences waiting to be discovered. She thought about the path she had traveled, from the quiet cafe in her home city, to the uncertain moments with her brother, to this elegant restaurant with powerful investors, and realized that every step had led her here. For the first time in her life, Lena felt that she was not just surviving, she was stepping into a life she could shape. A life full of purpose, adventure, and hope. The journey was only beginning, and she was ready to embrace it fully, knowing that courage, skill, and heart had brought her this far, and would carry her even further. That night, as she looked out over the city from her hotel room, Lena made a quiet promise to herself. She would not let fear hold her back. She would face every challenge, embrace every opportunity, and continue to prove to herself, and to the people who believed in her, that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. The journey ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, Lena welcomed it. She was no longer just a waitress trying to make ends meet. She was a bridge between worlds, a translator, and a woman stepping confidently into a life she had always dreamed of, but never dared to believe was possible. The morning air was crisp as Lena stepped onto the balcony of her hotel room. The city stretched out beneath her, alive with movement, lights, and possibilities. She felt a quiet determination inside her, the kind that comes when a person realizes that they are standing at the edge of something big, something life-changing. She had come so far in such a short time, from a small cafe in her home city to a foreign country filled with new challenges, and now to a point where her choices could shape her entire future. Ethan entered the room carrying 2 cups of coffee, his usual calm presence filling the space. "Good morning," he said softly, handing her one of the cups. "Big day ahead. Are you ready?" Lena took a deep breath, holding the warm cup in her hands. "I think so," she said, her voice steady. "I've been thinking about everything, about the offer, about the meeting, about what comes next. I want to do this. I want to accept the role and see where it takes me." Ethan smiled, a flicker of pride in his eyes. "I thought you might say that. It's the right choice. Not easy, but right. You have the skill, the intelligence, and the courage to succeed. And most importantly, you've proven that you can handle pressure with grace. That's rare." They left the hotel together, stepping into the bustling streets. Lena's senses were alive with the unfamiliar sounds, smells, and sights. Everything felt bigger, brighter, and more urgent than her life back home. Yet she felt ready. She had grown in ways she could hardly articulate, gaining confidence, perspective, and a sense of her own power. The first event of the day was a smaller meeting with one of Ethan's international partners. Lena was to assist with translation and ensure smooth communication. As they entered the office building, she felt a wave of nervous energy, but it was different from the fear she had felt before. This time it was excitement, a challenge she knew she could meet. The meeting began, and Lena immediately fell into her role. She translated not just words, but intent and tone, making sure that subtle cultural nuances were preserved. She noticed the investors leaning in, nodding appreciatively at her careful and thoughtful translations. One of them, a stern-looking man with sharp eyes, asked a detailed question about logistics. Lena translated it accurately, then added a subtle clarification about the cultural expectations involved. The room responded positively. As the day progressed, Lena found herself moving from meeting to meeting, each one more complex and high stakes than the last. Her confidence grew with every interaction. She was no longer just the translator, she was an active participant, a bridge between different cultures and perspectives, and someone whose judgment and insight were valued. During a brief lunch break, Lena and Ethan walked through a quiet park near the office. She felt the sun on her face and let herself relax for a moment. "I never imagined anything like this," she said softly. "A week ago I was just working at a cafe worrying about bills and my brother. Now I feel like I'm stepping into a life I didn't even know was possible." Ethan glanced at her, smiling gently. "That's what happens when talent meets opportunity. You've earned every step of this journey, and you'll go even further if you keep trusting yourself." She nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for his encouragement. She thought about her brother again, wondering how he would react when she told him about everything she had done and the new life she was stepping into. The thought of helping him, supporting him, and finally giving him the opportunities he deserved fueled her determination. The afternoon brought a private consultation with a group of top investors. Lena was nervous at first, but she quickly settled into a rhythm. The investors asked pointed questions, sometimes fast and complex, but Lena handled them with precision and calm. She translated not only the words but the nuances, ensuring that every intent, suggestion, and concern was conveyed accurately. One investor, a woman with kind but critical eyes, looked directly at Lena at one point. "You've done an incredible job," she said softly, addressing Ethan first, then gesturing toward Lena. "It's clear she's more than a translator. She understands context, culture, and strategy. That makes a real difference." Lena felt her cheeks warm. She had worked hard, but hearing such acknowledgement was overwhelming. Yet it also filled her with a sense of purpose. She realized that her skills, her effort, and her courage were opening doors not only for her, but for those she cared about. By evening, the group prepared for a formal dinner with Ethan, the investors, and several of his top colleagues. This event was as much about relationship building as business. Lena felt a mixture of nerves and excitement as she prepared, carefully selecting her attire, brushing her hair, and reviewing her notes. She wanted to be confident, polished, and ready to engage. The restaurant was elegant with soft lighting and a quiet, sophisticated atmosphere. Lena noticed how everyone respected her presence. She translated conversations fluidly, added subtle cultural explanations when necessary, and contributed her insights when appropriate. Each time she spoke, she noticed nods of approval, smiles, and appreciation. It was a far cry from the cafe where she had served coffee just days ago. At one point during dinner, an investor asked Lena about her ambitions and goals. She spoke honestly, sharing her dream of helping her brother, of creating opportunities for herself, and of exploring the possibilities that had opened up through this role. Her words were simple but heartfelt, and the investors listened intently. They asked questions, seeking to understand her perspective, and she translated her responses carefully, making sure to convey sincerity and thoughtfulness. Ethan watched quietly, clearly proud of her. He had known she was capable, but seeing her navigate complex conversations with grace, intelligence, and authenticity confirmed what he already suspected. She was exceptional. As the dinner concluded, Ethan and Lena walked back to the hotel, the city lights twinkling around them. "You did beautifully tonight," Ethan said softly. "You've shown not only skill but character, poise, and intelligence. You're proving yourself in ways that go far beyond translation." Lena smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and new challenges at every step, and now she felt more confident than ever. She realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to move forward despite it. Every choice, every action had brought her closer to the life she wanted, the life she deserved. The next morning, Lena received a message from her brother. His words were filled with pride and excitement, telling her how amazed he was at her courage and accomplishments. She felt a surge of emotion, joy, love, and determination, She realized that everything she had done was not just for herself but for him as well. Her success could create opportunities for both of them, and that thought strengthened her resolve. Ethan joined her for breakfast, and they discussed the next steps. He outlined upcoming meetings, projects, and responsibilities, emphasizing how much she would be involved. Lena listened carefully, absorbing every detail, feeling more prepared and confident than ever before. She realized that this role was not just a job, it was a chance to shape her future, to grow, and to create meaningful impact. When they arrived at the office, Lena was greeted warmly by colleagues and investors alike. She moved through the day with ease, handling translations, offering insights, and building relationships. She noticed how her presence was valued, how people sought her input, and how her confidence had become contagious. It was clear that she was no longer just a newcomer or an assistant. She was a vital part of the team. By evening, the final meeting of the trip concluded successfully. The investors were satisfied, the deals were in motion, and Lena had proven herself repeatedly. She felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration, a sense of accomplishment that was hard to describe. She had stepped into a world she had never imagined, navigated it with grace and skill, and come out stronger, more confident, and ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Back at the hotel, Ethan turned to her with a smile. "You've done more than I ever expected. You've earned a place here, not just as a translator but as someone whose judgment, insight, and character are valued. You've proven yourself, and the future is wide open for you." Lena felt tears prick her eyes, not from sadness but from overwhelming gratitude and joy. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and challenges that had once seemed insurmountable, and she had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready. She thought about her brother, about the small cafe she had left behind, and about the journey that had brought her here. I can't believe this is my life now," she said softly. "A week ago, I was just trying to get through shifts at the cafe. Now it feels like anything is possible." Ethan nodded. "It is possible. And it's only the beginning. You've taken the first steps, Lena. The rest is up to you, but I have no doubt you'll succeed. You have the courage, skill, and heart to do extraordinary things." Lena smiled, feeling a sense of peace and determination. She had faced her fears, seized opportunities, and proven herself in ways she had never imagined. She knew that the path ahead would have challenges, but she also knew that she was capable of meeting them. That night, as she lay in bed, she thought about the journey that had brought her here, the long hours at the cafe, the phone call with her brother, the moment Ethan had noticed her, and the whirlwind of meetings, dinners, and challenges she had faced since arriving in this new city. Every step had mattered. Every choice had led her closer to the life she wanted. She realized that courage, determination, and heart had opened doors she had once thought impossible. And now, with her confidence growing, her skills recognized, and her path forward clear, Lena was ready to embrace a future full of possibility, adventure, and meaningful impact. Her phone buzzed gently on the nightstand. A message from her brother lit up the screen. "I'm so proud of you. You're amazing. You're showing the world what I've always known, that you can do anything." Lena smiled, her heart full. She typed back quickly, "We're going to do this together. This is just the beginning." And with that, she set the phone aside, closing her eyes and letting herself dream. The world was vast, filled with challenges and opportunities, but she was ready. She had faced fear, embraced courage, and discovered her own strength. She knew that whatever came next, she would meet it with determination, intelligence, and heart. The morning air was crisp as Lena stepped onto the balcony of her hotel room. The city stretched out beneath her, alive with movement, lights, and possibilities. She felt a quiet determination inside her, the kind that comes when a person realizes that they are standing at the edge of something big, something life-changing. She had come so far in such a short time, from a small cafe in her home city to a foreign country filled with new challenges, and now to a point where her choices could shape her entire future.